Today, we're going to review my completed map of Nob in the world of Greyhawk for the Temple of Elemental Evil campaign. If you've been following my videos, you know that the Temple of Elemental Evil module shouldn't just be run from the pages. Don't just start at the village of Hamlet and then go to Nob and then go dungeon crawling within the module. The campaign deserves more than that. Gary Gygax have expressed this, and I feel as well that this module, this campaign, this adventure deserves more than that. To run just the module from the pages, not only does the module injustice, but it could be a dungeon crawl slog. It wouldn't be as fun if you didn't actually put more effort into it. Gary Gygax in the module did state that he expected Dungeon Masters to expand the module, the scope of the campaign itself, to actually flush out Nob and use the village of Hamlet to create a living, breathing world of Greyhawk to adventure in. That way the players will be engaged and be part of the campaign even more. And if we can do that, the more epic the campaign will be. I feel there's no limit to the amount of preparation a Dungeon Master can have in a grand epic campaign. We're not talking just a night of adventure or a one-off at a convention or a gaming store. We're talking about a real breathing campaign where the players have backstories. The players delve into their background, into the lore of the campaign, and they live and breathe the campaign world. They role play it from session to session to uncover the layers of what's happening. The Temple of Elemental Evil campaign goes deep, actually farther than the module itself. It can go as far as the Wild Coast and get into the bottom of the Slavers. It could lead you to the Giant series in the Crystal Mist Mountains to the west and actually end up down into the Underdark in the City of the Drow and in the Q1 module and beyond, facing off gods. And that's the kind of campaign that I like to prepare for. I realize that not all Dungeon Masters have the time to prepare as much as you could. I understand there's a balance between preparation and playtime. You know, people have jobs, become adults, you have family and vacations, and you have to go to work. Your preparation time is limited. So it helps to have supplements and modules to run a Dungeons & Dragons campaign. Many of us, Dungeon Masters, have written and created material for campaign worlds like the world of Greyhawk. You take a module and you expand it, or they create their own adventures and expand the world itself. And that's what's wonderful about the world of Greyhawk, is the fact that the modules themselves flushed the world out. They expanded it. They detailed out local areas, more than just the World of Greyhawk box set covered. The World of Greyhawk box set was more like a synopsis of different regions, countries, cities, and organizations. And then it was up to the Dungeon Masters to flush out the world and make it their own. Over the years, many have done that, and all the way up to the Living Greyhawk days, where hundreds of Dungeon Masters created hundreds of modules for the area. And a lot of products came out over the years to do such things like Vecna and Istus and different modules like that. When we're focused on the most epic campaign world ever produced, I focused 100% on the most epic campaign ever written by Gary Gygax, was the Temple of Elemental Evil. I expanded to a point where my games are fully prepared no matter what the players do in the campaign, but other Dungeon Masters can lean on my material too and use it for their campaigns to help them flush out the material. Some material isn't worth the effort, like the laws of a country, different military jurisdictions, or politics, or noble titles. All that stuff is definitely important and adds realism to a campaign. It brings the campaign to life, but is it really worth a Dungeon Master's time to spend countless hours and months working on this lore to fit into a fantasy campaign world? So that's where other Dungeon Masters like myself come in, where we did the work for you, so that way you can borrow it for your campaign and run it. When you borrow material from a module or a lore book or another Dungeon Master, you can use it in your campaign without doing the work yourself, which saves you a lot of time. And often, the OCD type people out there that make this content, they put those hours in to make sure they got the material, they make sure they got the facts right. And that's where I come in. I've 100% focused on the Temple of Elemental Evil campaign in the Viscounty of Verbobonc area, all the way up the Thirandi, Valuna, the Wild Coast, and down south to the Fairy Kingdom of Selene. And maybe later on, me and my fellow Dungeon Masters on our Discord channel, we'll expand beyond that, maybe into the Wild Coast and maybe Greyhawk. Another thing I wanted to point out is Even though I have a lot of dungeon masters in my Discord channel helping me work on this daily, having discussions about this material, not everybody runs Greyhawk the same way. Because Greyhawk is so large with so many different timelines, it's hard to get two people in the same room that will want to be interested in the same thing. There's a lot of dungeon masters that are not interested in the Viscounty area. They're interested in Ulick, the Great Kingdom, or over the Yeomanry. There are different areas. The world is so big that the world is so large that there's all these campaigns running everywhere that are not really related to each other. The work that I focused on is the area around the Temple of Elemental Evil. That's not always useful to a lot of other dungeon masters out there. Another problem with running something like this is a lot of dungeon masters have different timelines they run it in, because it's no longer the standard 576 common year that World of Greyhawk is in. That was originally published back in the early 80s. Now, since the Greyhawk Wars and in the Ashes and the Living Greyhawk series, you got a lot of dungeon masters running their Greyhawk campaigns in the year 594 common year and up. When it comes to the material that I make, I try to make it timeline neutral. That way, no matter what you're running in your campaign, you can still use this information. Because no matter what the timeline is, usually the locations are the same, the organizations, the countries, all that's pretty much the same stuff. Like the Gnarly Rangers, for example. Or history even, like the Hateful Wars or the Battle of Emerald Meadows. That stuff doesn't change no matter what timeline you're running your campaign in. So, with all that said, I'm proud to announce that I finally finished the town of Ostverk, which is on the southern border of the Viscounty of Verbobonc, on the border of Selene, the Fey Kingdom of Selene. Now, you'd ask yourself, why do I care about that village when I'm running the Temple of Elemental Evil? When we look at the map, I'll show you how close everything is together. A lot of these villages are only 10 miles apart along the major merchant roads. And when you're running an epic sandbox type campaign, you don't know what your player is going to do. The temple agents are up to no good everywhere. They're collaborating with different organizations. In my campaign, I really expand upon that. I have articles for things like the cults of Orcus, the Blackthorn Orcs, the giants from the Lord Mill Mountains, and then also there's Uaz and his forces are at play, his agents in the Viscounty stirring up trouble. There's a lot going on in this campaign. If you have players that like to get involved into a living, breathing world and you really don't know what direction they're going to go in, it'd be nice to have at least the local towns in the area fully keyed and with NPCs, dialogue, locations, shops, organizations and leaders. Also, all these villages should have a map. I used the village of Hamlet as a template almost to set the bar to what a village should be, how much it should be keyed. There's a lot of locations, a lot of NPCs in that village. So I did the same thing with all the other villages in the area. So if you have a side quest where it takes the player south, just 10 miles south of village of Hamlet is Sheer Knob. I have another video about that. Sheer Knob is a gnome village in the Cron Hills on the border between the Viscounty of Verbobonc and the Greenway Valley, the home of the gnomes. And then 10 miles south of that, into the Cron Hills, is the village of Ostverk. And Ostverk is a third of it is gnomes, another third is human, and the other third I would say would be elf, because the elven fortress Caer Ostverk is there. And that protects the border and does not allow anybody to cross into the kingdom because they close the borders. What I'm saying is it's possible for these side quests or the investigation of these players tracking down the bandit activities or the cult activities to lead them down that far south, which is only 20 miles, to Ostverk. There's a lot going on down there. When I produce it, I'll create a PDF module to release on DM's Guild. You'll see that not only is there just locations and NPCs, but they all have their own backstories and plots and quests. There's a lot going on. In fact, I use a lot of modules from the Living Greyhawk series in my campaign. Even though it's a different timeline, you can still use that module. You just change the time. It's like the Gift of Beauty. Awesome quest. And that takes you down to Ostverk. That's where the Gift of Beauty was stolen. So the players are sent down there to investigate. I like how these adventures make their way around the Viscounty to these different locations at the beginning of the campaign to build the world up. They're not aware of that the actual Temple of Elemental Evil is active yet. All they know is there's bandit activity in the area, and they're figuring out that a lot of these are being controlled by some kind of cult, like temple agents of earth, air, water, or fire. And that's where they start figuring stuff out. Then a lot of these clues are pointing them towards Nulb. They finally get around to getting to Nulb, and then once they're there, about 5th or 6th level, which is really important, that they actually start investigating the temple itself. You want the world to give you a lot to do, to really draw you in, to get you excited, to figure out what's going on, peel back those layers of the onion at first until finally you wind your way to Nulb where you figure out what's going on. It'll probably get killed too, because Nulb is really powerful. More than you would possibly believe. I shock my dungeon masters on Discord of the articles I put out for that area. The pirates are awesomely powerful, so are all the other NPCs in that area. And so the players really have their hands full when they're having to deal with all that and then getting into the temple. But anyway, back to Ostverk. Ostverk is a lot going on. The Earth Temple is active down there too. They're behind some of these things. The players will track all that down, figure it out, and find out what these bandits are up to. I created, like I always do, a custom map for the town. It's fully keyed on World Anvil, and every location is interactive. So you click on that shop, they'll take you to that article with artwork and dialogue and list of things for sale and the characters there. Let's take a look at that stuff. Our first stop is the splash screen of the World Anvil website for Verbobonc Campaign Guide 576 Common Year. And if you scroll down past the blurb of what this campaign's all about, there's an interactive map of the Viscounty. You click on each town, it'll show you the article and more articles in that town. Beyond that, on the left side is a table of contents. Every video I always go over this, but you never know who might be joining our video and not see my other videos yet. On the left is the Verbobonc Atlas, and then this Verbobonc Viscounty. Below that are all the towns I have completed so far. If I click on Ostverk, you'll see the list of all the articles in Ostverk. These are all the locations in Ostverk. At the top of the list is the main article for Ostverk. We can look at each article by clicking on them, but I want to go ahead and use the interactive map so we can show off the map. That's why we're here. So the map's on the right. It's a list of maps on the right, and this is the one. We're going to click on it and take us there. As you scroll out, you can't see the whole map because it's too big. This map is huge. About Wizards of the Coast. This is important stuff. The Wizards of the Coast fan content policy. So whenever you make anything for D&D, like World of Greyhawk or whatever, and you used any pronoun like Vecna or St. Cuthbert, it has to be free. You can't sell it. Except on DM's Guild. That's different now. They just announced a couple weeks ago that you can sell modules and work lore on DM's Guild, but you use their license. You can only sell it there. You can't sell it nowhere else. And they take 50%. That's why I charged $10 for my last one, so I get $5. Before that, anywhere else, I have to give out all my material for free. I give it away for free on my Patreon because I can put files there and people can download those files. I give them away on my Discord. Sometimes I post them on Facebook. For a dungeon master to use this material like this map, you want a high resolution file. You might want to print it up. So I always offer that as an extra, another download. On my Patreon, I have all the high resolution downloads of the best stuff I have available there. But all the regular stuff, like World Anvil, that's completely free. My whole campaign is on World Anvil, so you can actually run that campaign from World Anvil. I formatted it so it's easy to do that. I took my cues from Old School Essentials, and I'll show you that in a moment. So the map here. If you scroll around the map, these are labels for each location. If you hover your cursor over one of them, like this bridge right here, it pops up a little blurb of what the place is like. Then, if you want to read the whole article, you have to click on it. The bridges and roads I don't have separate articles for. They're just names. That's something I added at the last moment. I think bridges and roads should have names. That way, when you're role-playing, your character, the non-player character, can tell them where to find something. Like, across that bridge, down that road, you can't miss it. You know, that kind of thing. This road running through Ostverk is called the Long Road. Got a lot of information. And it runs south through Ostverk. This part of town is the human side. Human little buildings there. If you go south, scroll more south, to the left, to the southwest, is Gemhome. Now this is the gnome community. These are all hand-drawn objects that I created myself, the little hills and things. And on to the east is Caer Ostverk, and that's the elven fortress guarding the Selene border to the fake kingdom of Selene. And if you go farther south along the long road, it takes you to the actual border there. Now, some modules from Living Greyhawk say the border is like right there, but the Gift of Beauty module says they were ambushed 2 miles south of Ostverk before they got to the border, because the Gift of Beauty is a gift to give to the Queen of Selene. And it never arrived there. There's a lot of politics involved in that adventure. Very important. All eyes are on that problem. And I have a whole quest that I'm going to go ahead and create and release that later. But I got the foundation done. So that's another reason why I do this. So all these towns I've created, all these shops, all these organizations and NPCs, they're the foundation. They're the bricks to the house. You can't really create a module or an adventure without the house first, without the foundation first. That way I can build upon the foundation. Like, okay, now that we know the village of Hamlet, now I can create quest for the village of Hamlet because I know all the NPCs there and their motivation and backgrounds and all the shops and things like that. So that way I can refer to it. So you'd be part of so the village of Hamlet would be part of the adventure, the lore. And so my focus in the last 5 years is building the house, the foundation of the campaign. All these towns and cities in a 500-mile radius. That way, one reason is not only is this a sandbox, but it's also opens up the possibility of your players being from someplace else besides the typical I'm from the city of Verbobonc or I'm from the village of Hamlet, whatever. So you can actually have your players in their background show right here on the map where they're from, with NPCs and everything. Like, I know his dad. I know who trained you. I know what organized it. That church. You know where that church is in that town. Okay, so back to this village before I get too far down the road here. Let's start from the top. So at the top is a long road that goes 10 miles north of the long road is Caer Knob. And then 10 miles north of Caer Knob is the village of Hamlet. 10 miles north of that is Hingnora Valley. A thing about changing the name to Nib's Rest. I think that sounds better. I gotta change that. I gotta ask the guys on Discord if they like that or not. Nib's Rest, or based off the river, Nib's Run. I think it sounds better, Nib's Rest. But Anna Meyer's map has it called Cienega Valley, which is a town in California. It's a wine vineyard, which is really, really off. I do not like that name. So that's something to think about. Anyway, 10 miles north of that is Ederbrook, and then 10 miles north of that is the city of Verbobonc. I always have my players in my campaign start at the city of Verbobonc and work their way south. So that's what the long road is, the merchant highway through the Viscounty. There's a lot of bandit activity along that road, including the bandits from the Moat House. So to the west is, I named even the fishing holes. This Breaker's Rest. I put a little blurb there. I named the creek Stoneflow Creek because it flows from the Lord Mill Mountains. And then I named the path going that way, Golden Leaf Path, Stoneflow Creek. But these aren't actually articles. I just named these locations. Now, as you can see, a lot of these locations are not, they don't have articles, so it gives room for the Dungeon Master to expand himself. You can add another farm over here and NPCs for your campaign. And down the river to Everspan Bridge. South of the bridge is the actual village proper. But before we get down there, let's head east to the mill. So this is Hingnora Waterside Mill next to Hingnora Pond. So we'll go ahead and click on the mill here. And as you click on it once, it'll pop up a limited article on the left. It's not the full article, but it's enough to roleplay from. But you're not going to see all the artwork or any extras in the sidebars. But if you scroll all the way down, you can click on Read Full Article. And that brings you to the article. I try to match my top banners with the location of the town. So that's Ostverk. So this is full description of where it's at, what it looks like, what it's like to be there. I got artwork on the right. The artwork, a lot of times I nail it. It's like exact. Sometimes it's, a little bit off, but it gives you enough of an idea what the place is generally like. Give you an idea. You don't have to share this artwork with your players. It's up to you, but I feel there's a benefit to it to the articles to give you a vibe or a flavor to the place. Even though that picture isn't exactly what those banks look like in that river, in that bridge, but it's close. I couldn't do better than that. Okay, but the actual real description is in the article. So the location, the atmosphere, the sounds, the history, there's challenge and threats there. It talks about the raids and the bandit threats, things like that. Their vulnerability. I have a little blurb about politics and their relationships. And then there's a thing about the pond fairy. So there is a pond fairy living in that pond, and it's a friend to all the locals. But as you know, fairies do become mischievous and things could happen. It's good material for a dungeon master. And then below that is their faith and family with Biori, the Old Faith, and their beliefs and their community. On the right side, I add dialogue or quotes. Sometimes I add a lot of dialogue. Sometimes it's just quotes to help you get in the mood, to set the tone of the character or the location. And then there's a list. I always list the characters and stat blocks on the right. That's where I usually put that. You're not going to see that right column in the limited view. That's why you have to click on read article to see the whole thing. Also, for those that are on cell phones, you can't see this all at once either. This does work on cell phones, but not 100%. I think what it does, it makes one massive column. You have to scroll all the way to the bottom to get to the side column. And also the interactive links on the side column isn't always clickable on a cell phone. I've heard that reported before. So I put the characters here, the owner, his wife, his kids, their personality and traits and backgrounds. Sometimes I'll add services with prices depending on the location and more things. I added a picture of the pond, what it looks like outside that mill. So this is basically one of the articles for a location in Ostverk. So let's go ahead and go back. Here's the mill. So let's go ahead and click on the pond. I want to show you that article because I have flavor text at the beginning. That's what that gray box area is. But we'll look at the full article here. And as you can see, sometimes a dungeon master needs help with some flavor text or to help set the mood or the tone. Oh, you don't have to paraphrase it, but it's there for your use. And I have more artwork for the place and more information about the flora and fauna and more about the fairy pond. To the right is Caliro. I don't have a stat block for her on this article, but when I create the actual PDF module for DM's Guild, I do add stat blocks there. I usually do add stat blocks to these articles too, but I just didn't do it for her on this one. When I start working on the PDF module for the DM's Guild, sometimes I'll go back in here and I'll add stuff that I'm creating for that module, so that way I'll make sure it's in 2 locations. Whenever I see something missing, I go ahead and take it on at that point and add it. I'm always constantly editing, constantly adding. Dungeon Masters on Discord are always finding things and telling me to fix this or fix that. So I'm always working on that, which is very helpful. The main article itself has a description of what the town looks like, flavor text, and a picture on the right called the Sanctuary of the Divine Order of Ostverk, which is one of the chapels there. I have a section for the history, the geography, society and culture, government and the laws and the politics that's involved there. There's a lot of politics going on because you got a bunch of leaders. Lord Deleveu, commander of the Mounted Borderers, and then you have the commander of the Elven Fort, Caer Ostverk. And then you have the religious leaders in town. So there's a lot of politics going on with the raids, especially lately. And in my campaign, when the players do get there and spend the night, I do have the Blackthorn orcs raid that night and burn down one of these shrines. So that's something I do in my campaign, but right now we're focusing on the foundation of the campaign world, which is the town. There's a section for religion, and there's quite a bit going on here because not only do you have the Old Faith and Biori, but there's also other faiths and priests, clerics in town as well. And that's all covered in the different locations. The military is covered as well with the human side and the elven warriors and then the gnomes. So there's pretty much almost like 3 militias, except the elven fort isn't really a militia. It's an actual small army, a company of elven warriors. And then you have the Mounted Borderers, which is at Deleveu Manor. And then you have the town militia under Baron Fife. And I explain all that here in the article. So this is the overview of the entire town here. And as you scroll down, I even get down to the demographics, the percentage of humans, elves, gnomes, and half-elves, and things like that. And on the right is the key political figures, which I talked about before. Tellerine, Walgraf Tellerine Caroline, that's the elven commander of the fort. And then also there's Lord Corbin Deleveu, which is he's a lord of the Viscounty and the commander of this company of the mounted borderers on the border here. Baron Fath is captain of the guard of the human side. Below on the right is a whole list of locations, articles for the village itself. And as you can see, like 31 locations, so it's quite a bit. It had to be because there's so many sections of this town that spread out. It just had to be that many. Even though some of these locations on the map are empty. So I made sure I try to keep this town as realistic and organic as possible. And on the right is the social structure. Talks more about who's in charge and with religion and things like that. But let's go ahead and click back on the map. I want to talk about that organic nature I was telling you about. So as you can see, I spent quite a bit of time with bushes and trees and rocks and streams and things. Now all the rivers and roads on the Anna Meyer's map and the original Greyhawk map, those are the major roads of the world, of the Flyness. There's a lot more trails and minor roads and streams and ponds that are not on those maps. And the only way to get to know about them is to create them yourself or in a module, like if a module for like example the moat house. That's a perfect example. That from the main map that there's the village of Hamlet and there's a moat house over there to the northeast, but you don't know about the terrain or other paths or locations around that area at all. You just don't. It's not in the original box set or any of the lore. But if you get the module, it details out that little area, so it gives you more information. It gives you more description, more detail to the campaign world. And that's what modules are all about for Greyhawk. That's why Greyhawk is the greatest campaign world ever made, because of those modules. So with that in mind, I did the same thing with this village. Look at all those trails and side roads and streams. I have a lot of streams. There's more to the south, which I haven't gotten to yet. But I have two streams coming out of the pond here. And Deleveu Manor is on the right. So this is the location where the mounted borderers are stationed in those barracks right there, outside of the manor. And there's the stables. But lately the Viscount of Verbobonc have pulled back the borderers. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bigger map here. Get more screen real estate here. Yeah, I can zoom out a little bit more. Okay, Deleveu Manor is in Deleveu Woods, which I have marked as well. So there's a road that goes around the pond and keeps going past Deleveu Manor, and that leads you to Humming's End. So that path, parallel to that stream, for a while at least, goes to Humming's End. So I like to label that way players or the Dungeon Master can get their orientation in the campaign. And then there's path to the north, Wilderin Path. That's just a minor path going to like a hunting lodge or something. It's wherever the Dungeon Master wants it to go, but it doesn't go to any place in particular on the big map. And I have a little road that a trail that goes around the pond, and this big hill right here south of the pond. This is the Temple of Borough. This is where a lot of action happens in my campaign. A lot of plot twists and things happening. And this is instrumental to the raids of the Blackthorn Orcs. This is their focus on the raid. And a lot of fun things happen with that. And the priestess herself beseeches the players to help her to recover her lost relics in one of my adventures. But that's right there. As you can see, the forest is right there. There's like nothing. It's all wild. And so the orcs can easily raid through this to that hilltop and burn it down. So Ostverk has quite a few buildings here. At the center of Ostverk is the marketplace of Ostverk. There's a lot of activity at the center of the town at the marketplace with a lot of merchants selling and performing trade. On the west end of the marketplace is the long road, and across the road is the actual outfitters The Mercantile Outfitters is the general store that most players will go to buy and sell gear. That's where most of the common items are. And on the east side of town, it's this huge shrine. Now, this shrine is a shrine to the gods of the divine lawful gods. So basically, it's a whole bunch of shrines in there with a lot of lawful gods of the realm, like St. Cuthbert and things like that, with a minor cleric there tending the shrine. So not at this small town, they don't have separate temples or churches for each of these gods all around town. But a lot of the lawful gods are there. And then which is interesting, it's a fun place to go to because you get to meet a lot of NPCs. On the north end of the marketplace is the Laughing Moon Inn. This is the inn that most likely the players will stay at. This is the nicest inn in town. It's got stables next door, as you can see to the right. And you can actually stay there and get rooms and get good food and drink and get rumors. Now, as an experienced dungeon master knows, the things you do in town as players is you go there to spend the night and rest up, resupply, get rumors, and get henchmen. So the tavern is the number one place to get rumors in any campaign, to progress the campaign forward. That's where you find out information. And so that's a very important location in town. There's other buildings here that are not keyed that you could place, like another tavern or inn or a shop that you could key yourself if you want. I do have a wheelwright shop across the road, and there's a forge, number 12, to the south there, with a really interesting NPC smith. You can follow along on the World Anvil website as we talk about this, by the way. And this is the guest noble house. Usually, like when some big lord comes to visit, like Lord Millennius, they'll put him up there. And as you go farther south, I'm going to zoom out. At the base of the hill of the Temple of Borough is the priestess cottage right here. And that's where she stays. And there's another kind of a little mansion there. And this is a nice little area. And right here is another spot that could be it's another temple. It's another church. And I didn't key that yet. I should have keyed it with something like Pelor or something like that. But that would be a good location for a church like that. And then south of that is the apothecary. And below that is another inn. This is the worst inn in town, where people usually stay waiting for permission to cross the border into Selene. You have to actually go present yourself to Caer Ostverk and ask for permission to enter the country because they close the borders. And it usually takes 2 or 3 months to get a response if you're allowed to enter or not. So a lot of visitors will stay here at the inn waiting for word if they're allowed to go in or not. I key some farms with some side quests to go with those farms too. Now to Gemhome. So Gemhome is the gnome side of Ostverk, and that's the one, they were here long before the humans were. And that's all part of the history and the lore here. And Clan Knackle is the clan that I created for this location. And they have community ties with other clans to the north, like in Sheer Knob and Greenway Valley. And it's fully detailed out with their priests and their leaders and trade and their own mines. And this is the marketplace, the market meadow right here in the middle. This is their inn, the Cozy Hearthstone Inn. It's the first building, actual above ground building you see coming into this area. A lot of these boroughs are in the side of the hill, as you saw in some of my artwork. Some of these shops are in the borough. They don't have above ground buildings. Some are, like this inn. As you go down the road, the Gemhome and the Shrine of the Golden Gem here, that's the actual community moot hall. This doorway right here by number 21 is facing the river. And the river's name is Crystal Current Run. And there's a couple of warrens that are keyed. And these are the miners. These guys are the miners. Yeah, they're the mining clan. And this one down here are the fishermen? Mining and gemstones and silver ore. And these guys are the community center. They're the ones that have a lot of clerics and priests. But anyway, their hidden gnome mine, it should be farther away, technically, because it's supposed to be hidden. But that's where it's hidden, on the map. You got to have it on the map so it'll be useful for a dungeon master. So that's where it's hidden. And nobody knows it's there, except for the gnomes. You got to remember, they don't just hide it from plain sight with normal vegetation. They use illusions, too. Gnomes were masters at illusion magic. And so they make sure nobody can find it. Because they're afraid that the human nobles are going to steal the gem mines from them. You remember, this land is still in the Viscounty of Verbobonc. A lord can easily annex anything they want. Just how things are in the medieval ages. So they keep these mines hidden. And that's why there's a lot of contention, a lot of political problems between the gnomes and the humans right now. And of course, the agents of the Temple of Elemental Evil are pulling strings. They got, they're collaborating with a lot of other agents in the field, causing this problem. And they got some NPCs on their side helping them here and there. And it's all on my website and modules that I create. Things that are happening. And I'm inspired a lot of this through the Living Greyhawk modules that was produced. So if you have the Living Greyhawk modules, you can run those easily here in these towns. They're ready to go, ready for your use. So as you go farther south through this huge map, I'll zoom out. As you can see, it's a labyrinth of trails and hills and burrows and streams, and there must be like 6 or 7 bridges with names, so it makes it fun and interesting. And a lot of them are keyed, so you can actually run a good role-playing event here in Gemhome. Now, not only that, but maybe one of your players is a gnome, and he could have family here, or his family has connections, or you have connections as a gnome here, and you come here for help, or answers, or there's a plot quest involved with them. Which there is, of course, because I create these things. But there's so many reasons why this is so useful. And as you can see, as you head west, look at all those bridges and streams and trails. Here's the main intersection. I put a big tree in the middle of the intersection here. You go south to Selene, and you go up the incline to the top of the hill here, where the fort is. And if you're running the quest where the Gift of Beauty ambush site, I'd put it, if you want to be on the map, I'd put it right about here. Right here in that little clearing. And so the players can go there and investigate the signs of the ambush to find out. The players, they can track. The players can investigate with tracking and find out the numbers and what consists of the raiding party and which way they came from and which way they went. Things like that. And they can try to track down that Gift of Beauty. I put some little meadows out here, little fields of flowers. So that way, if players go off the track and you want them to meet somebody or investigate something, it's little objects here on the map that you can play around with. And all the way to the east, I did something even more, a little secret area. This would be a good place for a dryad. Maybe one of your players got a message to meet one of the gnarly rangers, like Ranger Knight Wynn. He has a message for them, and he wants them to meet him at the Dryad's Grove, which I didn't name. This would be a good location for a meeting, or maybe an investigation of what mischievous fairy is up to as a side quest. So it's a fun little thing on the map to play around with. And if you go north, you find yourself back at Deleveu Manor. Okay, zoom out. Oh God, zoom out some more back to the full map. As you can see, you can't see the whole map. You can only see half of it at a time here. So I'll slowly scroll down to see the full breadth of this map here. It took me a couple months to make it. You're welcome to go into the World Anvil and inspect each of these locations. In these articles, you'll find dialogue and description and background of these NPCs and side quests and things for sale that brings the campaign to life to be really fun and exciting. I think you'll like a lot of this stuff. And even if you don't go south down into the gnome area, which can be very useful in the campaign because depending on what quest you have them on, you still have Ostverk with its interesting inn and tavern and this marketplace and these different shops and things that have happened. There's side quests abound in all these locations, which will bring the campaign to life even more. Not only will it help bring the campaign to life, but it'll get your characters up levels. So that way they get high enough level to tackle the Temple of Elemental Evil. Now, if you're running this campaign in 1st and 2nd edition, you definitely need to be 5th, 6th, 7th level before you go into the Temple of Elemental Evil. If you're running 5th edition, you can pretty much kill anything anytime you want, even at 1st level. So it's not so much to worry about it. But my goal in my campaign is to have the players engage the campaign world, explore it, have fun, and uncover the mystery of the Temple of Elemental Evil before even discovering it. And try to level them up as they get there. And take time leveling up. I hope you enjoy and use the map I made for Ostverk on the border of the Viscounty of Verbobonc and Selene. I think this township is fun and dynamic with a lot of interesting elements to bring a campaign to life to have fun with. A dungeon master can have a lot of fun running these things in a campaign to get to draw the players into the area of this campaign world to bring the actual campaign adventure to life. Please, I would like to know what you would use this map for, how you would actually bring your campaign to life with it in these locations, how useful it would be for you running the Temple of Elemental Evil. Going forward, my next step is to remap the village of Nob. I'm going to go ahead and tackle the articles are almost all done. If you go to my World Anvil website, you'll see that all the articles are written for all the locations in Nob, like 47 locations, with a lot of NPCs and a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts. I just need to go ahead and make the map now.
Did you enjoy video? Consider tossing support on my Patreon. It best way to support orcs. If you would like to see more content, subscribe and post comments below. It better not be bad.
Now that I got this map under my belt and behind me, I can actually start focusing on that map next and bring that to life. Thank you for your time, and I hope your players have as much fun as mine did in Temple of Elemental Evil.